few people have asked me why I create YouTube videos and put everything out there. I'm going to share with you exactly why. Welcome back to those of you who watch my videos before, my subscribers, appreciate you. I'm going to talk through why I am starting to lay out my life on YouTube. It's caused some uncomfortable situations with family and friends, asking me why I'm doing it and, criticising me and say that I'm mad for doing it. You join me in my messy sitting room. Bonus points for anyone who can work out what that is over my right hand shoulder. You can only see a small part of it. But yeah, anyway, back to the video. So why do I do it? There's a few different reasons. The first one is really I've always been very against unfair things, and I've always been quite opinionated what I do think is fair and unfair. And I'll take you back to an example that I had when I was probably 21 year old. I worked in an outbound call centre for a big financial institution. I'm talking one of the biggest banks in the country. I won't name them, so I don't want to get into that hot water. But I worked for the bank and I was doing outbound calls, ringing people between 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. at night, basically interrupting their favourite TV soaps. As you can imagine, the backlash was pretty strong, but my job was to sell additions accounts, which were like additions to their bank account, and loans. Now, back then was in the heyday of PPI, which for those of you who don't know is payment protection insurance, and there's since been a big uproar about PPI and how it was being missold by the banks. And unfortunately, I was one of them. I did that job. I was 20-year-old. I didn't know any better. I cut my teeth in sales doing that job, and one particular story really sticks with me, and I've never really been able to shake it off, and I've always felt that it was wrong at the time, and I just didn't have the conviction or the confidence or whatever you want to say to stand up for what I thought at the time, and I went along for the ride. So I called an old woman who, I don't remember her exact age, but she will have definitely been in her 80s. I remember she needed a loan to help with something specific. It was a family emergency type thing that she needed for a loan, and she was getting the money to help her family, some of which she needed herself. So we did the loan. It was a significant loan. It was above £10,000. Again, I can't remember the exact numbers. Now, for payment protection insurance, the cover finished, I can't remember exactly, but it was either 65 or 70. Now, this woman was at least a good decade older than when the payment protection insurance would apply. Now, we used to go through the system, and the system used to recommend whether or not the customer should take payment protection insurance. Now, I put all the details in, just expecting it to say, nope, you can't offer this to Mrs. So-and-so, she is over the age to make a claim on PPI. To my surprise, the system actually said, PPI, payment protection insurance, is recommended to this customer. And I was like, what? It can't be. I knew that the cutoff was well under her age. So what I did, I remember you used to have to put your hand up, put the customer on hold as it was. So I did that, put her on hold, and I got one of my managers to come over, who were called team leaders at the time. So somebody come over, I very quickly explained the situation in 30 seconds or so. They then instructed me to follow the advice on the screen and offer the loan with payment protection insurance, knowing full well that this lady, should she ever wish to make a claim on payment protection, wouldn't be able to because she wasn't within the age parameters. And I questioned it a couple of times and pushed back. I was like, but she can't claim. We've given her this. It's absolutely pointless. She can't claim. And in the end, I was told, you need to sell this loan with payment protection insurance. And I'm a bit disappointed in myself now, thinking back some 20 years on, but I did. So I sold a loan to a little old lady, as I imagine her. Never seen her, it was a phone call, but it sticks in my mind now. And I imagine I sold her that loan. She was so grateful, so thankful that we'd been able to lend her the money. And I just felt really wrong. I had a horrible taste in my mouth. It just never escaped me, and I can remember it 2 decades on. Can't remember much else from that job, but that's one of the things that sticks with me forever. That's the first thing why I just think things are so unfair, and you need a little bit of education in order to make those informed decisions yourself, for those who can. I listened to a podcast recently with Martin Lewis, and he was talking about all of the claims for payment protection insurance, and he was saying 30% of the people who put the claims in didn't even put their own details in. There was a kind of framework to do the letter, and they left the details like your name here. They didn't change them. It was something like 30% of people did that, and that shows the kind of challenges that some people have when it comes to understanding these things. They can't even have the mental capacity to fill out a letter with their name, yet we were taking payment protection insurance from them. We were charging them for things. We are constantly taking money from them. So that's the first thing. The second thing was on my dad. My dad's worked hard all his life. He's now in his 70s, and he worked bloody hard, pardon the French, but he started work at 15 in the motor trade and was in the motor trade all the way through. He had a very modest pension, which he'd put money into every month. And there's two things that really hit me. I looked at the fees he'd been paying on his pension, and they were absolutely astronomical in terms of what you compare today with, the likes of Vanguard and Trading 212. Not that I'm recommending those guys, but they are pretty low fees. So he got absolutely stung throughout his investing, where come rain or shine, whether the investment performed well or even if it lost money, these companies were taking these fees from my dad every year from his pension pot. And again, it just made me feel sick. The second thing though was when he come to get presented with these options. My dad doesn't know much about finance. He's a pretty intelligent guy, but he's just never been informed on these subjects. He's never had the opportunity to learn about it. And when it come to him retiring, he was at state pension age, so he was getting his state pension. And he also had these small private pensions. He actually had two, so he had two pensions. He only thought he had one. They were with a major pension player. The lady come out from the pension provider, sat him down, told him he had the two pensions, and said, give him some time to think about it, and was going to come back to make his decision on what he wanted to do with his investment. Now he was 57. You could take a 25% drawdown. He could look to change the funds into something more, more bond probably focused. So anyway, the woman come back in 2 weeks. And in this time, I seen everything, and this is when the penny dropped for me, and I was like, this is just wrong. This is just, my dad's paid into this for 50 years. He's been absolutely stung, and now they want to take thousands of pounds to invest this into another fund. So anyway, I'm like a dog with a bone when it comes to some things. I looked into this massively. I started researching pensions, looking into it, finding out everything that I could. This was before AI, so it would have made it easier if I'd had it. Anyway, I looked at what the kind of options were, and it was basic what my dad should do. He should look into a different fund that had a less equities, and that was going to be safe for him. That's what he wanted to do. He was very against risk, didn't want anything too risky. And when the woman come back, she recommended exactly the same thing to go with them, but she was going to charge, it was something like £2,000 for that investment advice. And I was like, that's not investment advice. You're not giving him any advice. You've asked him what his risk tolerance is and then told him he should move into an account that's less volatile. And the accounts that she were recommending were only with that provider, and the fees were really high still. So I was like, no, he's not doing it. He's not going to stay with you guys. He's going to look elsewhere. And then I always remember the woman said, well, I don't understand why you're so reluctant to pay the fees, because you've got another pension that you didn't even know existed. And I was just absolutely dumbstruck. My dad had paid into this for some 50 plus years, and she just thought because he had a pension he didn't know about, that was fine to take over £2,000 from him for nothing, because she was doing nothing other than putting him in an account with really high fees based on his low tolerance to risk. So anyway, long story short, my dad moved his pension into a better pot, where it's been ever since. We probably should review it, to be fair, but didn't charge him anything. His fees are far less than what they were, and that's done quite nicely for him since he retired. So I guess that's the reason I'm doing this, because with a little bit of education and a little bit of knowledge, you can make a huge difference to your pension and your investment life. You can get back decades of your life. If I didn't know about this, there would be no way on God's earth that I'd be retiring at 45. Hopefully in 3.5 years' time, as it is now, I'll be able to retire should I wish. I'll be financially independent, and that's taken back, what will my pension age be? Probably 70. So it's going to take back 25 years of my life where I'm financially independent. I can do whatever I want. And I've always felt like that. I feel like people get used, like there's a lack of education for a reason. It might get into conspiracy theories and tinfoil hats here, but I feel like we're just not given the education we need to make these decisions. It's not rocket science. The best investors are often the ones who do the most basic things. Low cost index funds outperform managed funds the vast majority of the time. There's very few investors who can provide a long-term record of outperforming low cost index funds. So that's it. That's me why, really. I just want to try and get this message out there. I want to try and help people. It was too late for my dad. It could have made a significant difference if he'd have had that information 20-30 years before he retired. But fortunately, he's still, you know, enjoying his retirement. His pension's not massive, but they've got enough to get by and they're enjoying it. But hopefully these videos, if one or two people actually take action and put them into practice, then, you know, it's worth the hour of my time or whatever it takes to record them, upload them, edit them, etc. So that's it. Follow along if you want to follow my journey. I'll share everything along the way, all the numbers. Subscribe, like and comment, and I'll see you on the next one.